Hey guys, welcome to Agency Allies, the show where we sit down with leaders shaping the future of branding, design, and advertising. No fluff, just what it's really like working inside today's top agencies. Today we have on Scott Carlson, the founder and CCO of Vans General Store. They've been in business for about 13 years. They're located in New York City and specialize in production, restaurant design, brand strategy, and digital marketing. And I personally think they have a really fascinating aesthetic. So I'm really excited to have Scott on and kind of chop it up with him and talk industry trends and see where this conversation takes us. So welcome, Scott. So did I get like kind of the intro? You've started Vans about 13 years ago with your buddy Liev Schreiber.
Yeah, we're 13 years old coming up this November, and I started it with Liev. And part of the Liev story goes, we're kind of unique in the way that we build our group out, our people, our staff, and we hire makers from across the board, people who do lighting design, people who do sneaker design, not just advertising people. And when I was starting this, Liev and I have been friends for a long time, and he was coming into Mother, where I worked before, to help me do longer format pieces when we were doing documentary stuff for Chevy, and we were doing a bunch of long format things for NBC. He was just coming in and helping me do these longer format things, getting out of the 30-second, 60-second, 90-second world. And when we opened, and I was telling him about the philosophy of, look, I want makers in here. We've got a lot of marketing guys on the team, but I really want people who create the things that we see, like, Jones for. And he was like, oh my gosh, I love that idea. Let me join, and you can do the fine art marketing side of the world, and I'll bring in, theater and entertainment. And
That big network that he has.
In that network that he has.
Yeah.
And that's how we started. And the very first thing that we did was 4 music videos for Bon Jovi, and working with Fisher Stevens. Wow. So,
Cool.
the concept flew right off the shelf, right off the bat. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, and you and I have like previously talked about how just the landscape just continuously shifts. We go from big screen advertising to small screen advertising back to big screen. Notably, you said something really, I've never had a podcast kind of, or a production focused agency on here. And so it's really interesting to hear you talk about during COVID, like all the production stopped. So that was like a big kind of cultural shift. Do you mind speaking a little bit about the different trends that you're kind of seeing in today's agency world?
Yeah, it's difficult. I've been in the business for, 20 plus years, and there was a time when agencies did everything. If you went to an agency, they had everything in-house for you. And now we're at a point where there are specific agencies that do specific things. There's agencies that only do social. There's agencies that only do digital. There's agencies that only do experiential. And, really what I've seen recently is some of the big agencies trying to bring all of that back in-house. So I think what was happening for a long time, especially when social really kicked off, right? When digital advertising was everything, and then social advertising was everything, all these small groups came out and did these specific things. And it took away from the idea of marketing or the ideas in marketing. And it used to be that you would say, well, what's the big idea for the brand, right? And then everybody would work off of what that concept was, that single-minded proposition. And nowadays, or what was happening was, clients were going, oh, well, we're going to use this social agency, and then we're going to use this digital agency, and then we're going to use this. You're going to be our agency of record over here. And people weren't talking to each other. The social group was doing their thing. Digital group was doing their media buying. The brand agency was doing their brand stuff. And I think a lot of communication got fractured during that time. And, it came down to, social influencers and their, like, instead of going after the brand's, core audience, people were looking at, well, here's a social influencer that's got 1 million followers. Well, those 1 million followers don't necessarily translate back into a brand's DNA or a brand's core audience. And I think what was happening was messaging was getting fractured. And what I'm starting to see now is that the big agencies are starting to pull it all back together, and they've got their groups, and they're starting to be a little bit more synergistic. So clients don't have to go out anymore and have 3 or 4 different types of agencies working on their brand. They're starting to come back together into another brand. And we're also seeing, I think, the social media aspect of it, the influencer aspect of it is starting to change. Instead of, and I always get this wrong, instead of getting the micro influencers that have 1 million followers, they're getting the macro influencers that have a following that's core to a brand's DNA. So you don't go get somebody with 1 million, you go get somebody that's got maybe 60,000, 75,000 followers, but
Mm,
those
yeah.
75,000 followers are hardcore into what these guys are doing. So
Yeah.
they're much more specific. So I think things are changing a little bit. We're growing. Things get really exciting. I mean, digital is exciting. Social media is super exciting. Instagram, TikTok, all of that stuff. It doesn't always translate into sales, but it's huge for brand, right? It's huge for brand relevance and it's huge for brand recognition. And the new thing is AI, and how do we play with AI? And I think creative gets scared by the idea that like AI
Mm,
is going to replace something that they do. And I don't necessarily think that is the case. I think there's AI, we use AI across the board always. I mean, it's such an amazing tool. But we use it for business. And I don't think AI can do the original thinking and the concepting. Once the concepting's done and you're doing storyboards or you're working things out, AI becomes a really useful tool. It's doing things quicker than we used to be able to do. And there was certain things where, if you had an idea that sounds a little bit, far-fetched, AI could put it together for you. But you still need the original concepting.
mm.
And I think, that's another trend that I'm looking at right now that's going on in the agencies. And I think the fear is subsiding for a lot of the creative people, knowing that AI is not going to steal their jobs, but AI is going to be a tool to make their jobs better, because it's still going to come down to original thinking in a lot of cases. Not always, but in a lot of cases. If you're going to do something unique and fun, that's going to come from somebody's brain, and then AI is going to help you manufacture what you want to do. And I hate to, use the example of Apple, but I was fortunate enough to work on Apple in my career. But the Think Different campaign, and here's to the crazy ones, AI is not going to do that. AI is not going to do a campaign, the Think Different campaign for computers. That came from the minds of people. And then you can use AI. Well, who's thought differently? Who's uses the creative tools differently? But the original concepting, I think, is still core to why we are creatives.
Yeah, we hear a lot about AI on this show. I think as kind of I was a designer and a strategist, and I hate AI slop like on social media. I think it's
Yeah.
just, and I hate that my parents sent me, and my friends even send me videos and they're like, did you know that like dogs can have 7 legs? And it's just AI video. And you're like, come on. And so I think there's just a little bit of a disconnect between, I think also as like advertising people, where I don't know about you, but like a lot of us are perfectionists. We want like the right colors and the right typeface in the right shape in the right context, and it's going to be a while until AI can do that. I'd love to learn how, like you've mentioned that you're using AI tools on the business side. Are you doing like cold outreach? Are you doing like customer service? How are you integrating?
No, it's more of the operations side that the guys are using AI in operations, than it is, us using AI to do cold outreach or anything else. It's more business AI than in
Like workflow stuff?
workflow.
Nice.
Note taking, helping with the books, stuff like that. We're
Oh,
using
yeah, like Fireflies or Fathom.
we're
Yeah.
using a lot of AI in that world, but we're not we're using some chat, we're doing some stuff like that, but mostly for internal work. We're not using that for any client facing work, but it does, when we're putting decks together and stuff just for ourselves, it really is, it saves a lot of time. And the guys at the agency who are working on it at such a pace that our AI is keeping up with us, with who we are. So that's been like a lifesaver for a couple of these guys.
Do you think Van's adoption of AI will grow? And if so, like, where would you like to see it grow into?
Yeah, I don't know. It's still so new trying to figure out all the things that you can do with it. You know, like I'll be honest with the fact that there's been a couple projects that we've been working on that, putting storyboards together and mood boards together. I've gone to AI to be like, okay, I need X, Y, and Z, and it can't produce it. It can only
No.
produce what it knows, and it can't produce like a perfect example is we were going to be working on a piece that had emotional support Labradors, golden labs, and I wanted to, and there was a bunch of them. There was like 160 of them, nationwide that we were going to, go out and video and talk to the owner
Together or independently?
independently. Some of them
Okay.
together, but most of them independently.
We have a, sorry to interrupt you, but I live in Boulder and there's a town next to us called Golden, and there's one of these fairs where we get all the golden, like we just have like one type of dog and there's like hundreds of them running around. And I
Yeah.
always thought like it would be really cool to shoot like a dog food commercial in this or something.
Yeah, I think there's an airport in Utah that there's a body of them. There's like 60 of them there that go around the airport and try to bring a little levity to people
Oh,
flying. But
that's
what
fun.
I wanted to do is, I know I'm a dog owner and a dog lover, and I've worked on enough pet food in my career.
Huge industry, fascinatingly big industry here as
Oh
well.
my gosh. Oh my God. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. But knowing that every dog has its own personality, I wanted to do a storyboard that showed, at least 25 golden labs that were slightly different. And AI
Wow.
just couldn't do it. I ended up with the same dog 25 times after
Wow.
100 different tries. And we had the guys in the studio like typing in all the different things. And it really what it would have come down to is every single dog we would have had to write in a personality for and then get back. And at that point it was like it's easier to describe than it is to try to futz with it.
That seems like a very like granular kind of specific, like you want the dog, but like just a granular small change.
Yeah.
And AI just like isn't there yet. Yeah, I'd love to talk more about like you're the founder, you're the CCO, Chief Creative Officer. I have about, I think when we talked, you mentioned you have about like 10 to 12 to 15 people, but you can get up to 60 people.
Yeah.
I'd love to learn like what your day to day is. I have to imagine it's reviewing a lot of creative materials. It's probably some client acquisition. I'd love to hear you talk about some of that.
Yeah, so the easiest way to describe how we work is so there's 10 to 15 at any given day core people at the agency, account people, strategists, creative directors, and a couple designers, right? But the way that we work is we behave more like a movie studio in the sense of we build teams based off of projects. So instead of having 40 people sitting in the office and waiting for somebody to come up that's ready for a project, we handpick the people for each project. So I always use this example of if you're doing a horror film, you don't get rom-com people to do the horror film. You get
Mhm.
horror film people to do the horror film. And it's the same thing for us. If we're working on a project, I want to look at what the project is, who the client is, what the ask is, and then we build teams around it. And you brought up in the earlier on, we've done a couple restaurants. In the process of doing restaurants, we brought in lighting designers, we've brought in architects, and we've brought in people who are used to being in a situation like that. And even though we started from a white piece of paper building these restaurants for clients, we bring in people who understand that world, but we're doing the marketing strategy and we're doing the brand strategy at that time. So we'll bring in people and we'll treat it like a writer's room, and we could have 15 people from all different walks of life that have somehow touched some sort of tactile thing that has to do with restaurants, food, or in psychology. Why do people eat this type of food? Why do
And
people come into this?
it's a beautiful thing when like a restaurant design or just like an overall identity has so much cohesion. And so when you were talking about being in a writer's room, I think that's the perfect place to build that cohesion.
Absolutely. And what happens is everybody has these different ideas and they just bounce off of each other. Like the lighting designer is now bouncing off of a food photographer who's talking to a psychologist who's talking about why people fast,
Oh,
and how do we get people
yeah.
into restaurants, because fasting's, this new thing. But we've got
Another cold
everybody in
plunge
there.
in there.
Yeah, and we got everybody in there, and we come up with all the ideas and we think about it, and then those people disperse and they go back into their world of making. And the core people at the agency then take all of that information and build out the campaigns, or in this case, build out a restaurant for a client and do the marketing. And that's allowed us, one, to keep our overhead low, but it also allows us to make sure that the right people are on every project. Like when we were doing Sierra Mist and we were rebranding Sierra Mist for millennials, our writers room included people from Supreme, people from A Life, people who were designing shoes specifically for shoe drops. And we
Uh-huh.
were bringing people in that were culture, that were tapping into the millennial world and their culture. And we were bringing those people in to talk about, why do people do drops? Why are people lining up, a day in advance for Supreme to get a t-shirt? And having all of those people in a room, even though we're selling soda, really brings this interesting connection to, why do people do what they want? Why is somebody going to grab this thing off the shelf, right? So that was another fun project. And we do this other thing that you and I talked about the other day, which is we call regenerative media. And the Sierra Mist project was a complete rebrand in marketing and advertising. And we did these experiential pieces in Chicago and Detroit where we brought in local artists to actually build and design and paint the billboards that were going to be the out of home for Sierra Mist. But we took that one element, that one experiential thing that lasted a week, 6 designers working on 6 different billboards. It was an exquisite corpse, meaning one artist came down and put down the first layer, then another artist came down and painted on top of that person's thing and on top of that person's thing. So each person got to start and finish a billboard. And it allowed us to make sure that we had work that the client liked, but it was also really unique, but it was also unique to the towns that we were relaunching. So the artists of Chicago and the art of Chicago is different than the artists in Detroit and the art of Detroit. We wanted to keep everything pure. But what we also did is we worked with well-known Food Network chefs. We had Rick Bayless in Detroit, and I forgot the guy's name in Chicago with the green glasses. And they created like finger foods using Sierra Mist as an ingredient. So we were able to tap into the food culture world. We had college radio stations, DJs playing there. So we were able to tap into the college
What
scene.
year was this?
Oh gosh, this was a while ago. I don't remember. It was at least 8 years ago, because then Pepsi discontinued Sierra Mist.
Yeah, and they went to Starry.
Yeah, that's right. So Sierra
Yeah.
Mist became Starry.
Did a whole MBA project on Starry, and it's a fascinating kind of brand that they're gearing towards Gen Z and unapologetically.
Yeah. Yeah. So they went from millennials to the Gen Zers. But, point being is, this idea of regenerative media, we did one experiential piece that was really designed just to do the out of home. But it turned into this really big piece that generated 50 different videos. It created all kinds of PR with food, college, sports. We had an athlete from each hometowns, basketball or football team show up. The press came because they were there. So the news outlets were there. So we were on the local nightly news because,
Mhm.
Peanut, what's his name from the Chicago Bears, came to our event. But we designed it all out of the necessity of doing the out of home. And then we created this big event that created all the social media that we needed for 6 months, all the out of home that we needed for the year, as well as all these other pieces for their website that highlighted the artists in the local things. So one of the other things that we do, and because we were such a maker's culture, the people behind the cameras are usually the people who have created the campaign. So if something is going on while we're working and they're like, look at what's going on over there, we need to grab a camera and go get that, right?
Mhm.
Because we know that the next round of work we're doing that would fit in. It's one of the things that allow us to just continually generate work and new work based off
With
of.
yeah, and it sounds like with that technique, like lower margins, because you're already set up, you're already ready to go. So you might as
Well,
well just get material for the next campaign.
yeah, yeah, and like I said, the guys there, the guys holding the cameras, whether they're still or video, are the creatives. And when we were doing Sierra Mist, we were having a lot of fun because we were talking about, look, for social media, let's do some fun things and just talk about green, yellow, and bubbles, right? Lemon lime carbonated soda. And I would give them like $99 and tell them to go to the 99-cent store and buy whatever you wanted to do and come back and make videos, but it had to be green, yellow, and deal with bubbles. And I walked out into the parking lot when we were filming some of the artists, and there were two of the creatives wearing yellow raincoats, throwing green water balloons at each other.
Oh, that's
And
great.
there was somebody videotaping it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that happens when we work on projects.
As far as I'd love to hear more about, like, I remember you telling me a large part of your position is like client acquisition and also like upselling clients. Based off like rough percentage wise, if you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear like how much of the business's revenue comes from like recurring jobs, like with the same client, and how much is it like, or maybe the focus, like what focus is like sales focus is like asking more like your clients, like, are you interested in making another campaign versus like looking for new clients and pitching new clients?
That's a good question. We're always constantly trying to find ways to reach out in order to find new clients, whether we're doing case studies. We don't do a lot of cold emails. I've found in the past that they don't really work, and they're more, I get enough of them that I just delete instead of opening, that
Mhm.
I can't imagine the cold email, going out into the world works. A lot of the clients that we have and we've had over the past are recurring clients. So they keep coming back. Pepsi was a different situation, mainly because when we were in the middle of the campaign, Pepsi moved around all the brand managers. So all the people we were
Yeah,
working with,
they cycle. Yeah,
they
I have heard
cycled. So
that.
all of
Yeah.
a sudden there was a whole new group of people on Sierra Mist, and they didn't necessarily, they had their own idea of what they wanted
Oh
Sierra Mist to be,
gosh.
which became Starry.
Right.
So in that world, then a lot of those clients, moved on to other brands, or they moved on to other industry or different jobs.
Do you just to harp on that for a second? Because a lot, I think Danone does that too. Various like CPG brand managers, they all cycle.
Yeah.
When they cycle, are they choosing different agencies that
Yes.
they've worked with? Oh my gosh, that's a nightmare.
Yeah. So,
It's
it's
really
all
destabilizing for your revenue.
for our revenue. It is. I mean, we were having a lot of fun working on that, and the people at Pepsi were great. I mean, it was some of my favorite clients. And then it just kind of came to an end, and the new group had a different mindset, and they created something new, and they had people that they liked working with, so they continued working with that group.
Is there any way to get ahead of this cycle? And like, I know so much of this business is like relationship driven. Is there a way to kind of like keep these guys in the game?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think even at that time, I think our Pepsi clients were surprised, right? That the move happened, because we had been working on the campaign for a year, and then we were in the middle of making it all work, and we were in the middle of, like going to 7 different cities, and we ended at 2 cities because of the shift.
Well, um, yeah, it's fascinating. What's been like working really well for you guys right now? And then what is something that what's been like frustrating in the could be like in maybe like client acquisition, it could be however you want to speak on.
I think the frustrating thing for us is more self-imposed, unfortunately, which is we haven't done a lot of PR. And we haven't done a lot of PR on some of the better projects that we've done. There was a there was a time when we first started, we were doing all kinds of PR, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg TV, all that kind of stuff. And it got to a point where people were more interested to hear about why did Liev start an ad agency, right?
Oh, of
Instead of
course.
instead of the work. So
Right.
we decided at that time, like, let's lay off the PR for a while until we have a good body of work, that people are focused more on the work than they are about a celebrity being attached to the agency.
So it's really, you're a unique person to talk to because not a lot of agencies pair with a celebrity. You're saying that the celebrity, it's like a double-edged sword. It brings you the exposure, but the exposure is surface level.
I think so. I mean, and the thing is, Liev's brilliant, and his role is really a consultant. He's not putting himself out there. He's not being a celebrity in any way. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. He's a huge help creatively, but he's more of a consultant facing thing, and getting involved when need be. Back then, people really wanted to hear more about his story and why he wanted to do this, and it was just taking away from the agency. So I think our biggest hurdle, and we did it to ourselves, was not doing enough PR around the projects when we get them. And out of sight, out of mind. In this day and age, there's new agencies opening up every day, right? Like any two people who leave an agency during COVID and want to call themselves something, all of a sudden they're a new agency.
Right.
So there's just tons and tons of that. So there's so many small agencies out there now that it's just really hard to stay top of mind for people. As brand managers move and clients change and brands come and go, it makes it hard to really kind of stay there and keep track of everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like client acquisition is really difficult.
It's hard. We get a lot of the work that we get is word of mouth from one client to another. And we get a lot of, right now we have client Synavia, which is these guys who I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure they're very close to finding ways to cure certain types of cancer. And again, just weird client for us, oncologists, when we're used to doing big brand stuff. These guys are great. They're an amazing brand. They're an amazing brand inside themselves. The founder is probably one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life.
And they're in medical. They have
They're in
enough
medical,
revenue to like get a cool campaign. And
and they want to. They understand the power of a brand and even what it means for them in their world. And we're having so much fun with those guys. I mean, we have fun with almost every client we do, but again, it's like having the right client that's excited to do work and excited to participate and collaborate is everything. But they came through another client. They were just like, they were working with a big agency. I won't name the name. They weren't happy with the work they were getting. And another one of our clients was talking to one of them one day and said, "Oh, you got to go talk to, the guys at Vans General Store." And we had a lunch and that was it. And here we are, 6 months later doing some of our favorite work. It hasn't come out yet. It'll come out by October, but just startlingly good work. Like a website, designed from scratch. Like we've coded the whole thing. It's not templated. Brand advertising that's going to be coming out in New York City. The client is amazing.
Can you tell me, just because I'm from New York City, is it going to be like Subway? Is it going to
It's
be
going to be a little bit of everything. Yeah.
a little bit of everything? That's
A
cool.
little bit of
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. We've
Growing
already
up.
done
Yeah.
we've already done some videos and some short films and stuff for them, and we've interviewed all their researchers and scientists, and it's really just it's been a blast. I think that's another thing that makes us interesting. We've done big things like Cadillac and Chevy and Pepsi, but we've also done a lot of things from a white piece of paper, launching brands from nothing that have no budgets. Also, like, the whole idea that we're now onto our third restaurant. We're an advertising agency, and we're getting, from one restaurateur to another, like, "Oh, you're starting this thing. You got to go talk to the guys at Vans General Store," and they'll get you kicked off. Like we're about to,
My previous agency, Emotive, we used to design like C stores.
Yeah.
And like we worked with like Sony and we worked with the C stores.
It's awesome. It's fun. I mean, and I guess going into the, like, of course we like the big brands because we like the revenue that brings in, and we like the budgets to be able to go create some really fun stuff. But we also have these brands that, it's all about the client, right? Like you can be the best guys in the world and have the worst client and not get anything done. And you can have a small, small client that doesn't have a lot of funding behind them, but they're willing to listen and they're willing to do things within their budget that may be a little bit left of where they thought they wanted to go, a little bit, they may have thought that they wanted to come out and do some certain type of advertising. We've come back and said, let's do a 50-day PR campaign because
Mhm.
that's what your budget will allow. And from your 50-day PR campaign, we'll get to create all these other things from it. So it won't be 50 days, but we'll do 50 days of pure PR every day for 50 days based off of this project that we're doing. But that was going to launch out into, 1,000 different ships.
And while we're on PR, Scott, I'd love to like you said, not your Achilles heel, but something that you wish you did more of was PR.
Yeah.
What's blocking that?
Finance. I mean, it comes
Finance.
down to, in order to do, have a good PR people, you have to pay good PR people. And after, when COVID hit, it kind of shut us down for a while, mainly because a lot of what we do is production and a lot of experiential stuff when it does come to some of the campaigns we've done. All the work we did for Hulu was experiential, even though it created a bunch of videos and films and games. The Pepsi thing was, it was an experiential thing that launched the campaign and the reboot. After COVID, it took us a good 3 years to get back into a rhythm where revenue was coming in at a steady pace that we could knock off a site of cash per month for PR. And then it comes down to what are we doing that's PR worthy? Like, are we doing anything right now that is worth spending the money to do PR?
Right. So it's not necessarily like creation of the PR assets, like different case studies. It's like hiring the PR firms to like put it where
Yeah, get it,
New York Times and
put it in the
wherever.
right place. I mean, we can put stuff on LinkedIn and we can put stuff in all the places that you want to put it. But in order to really make a difference, you need good PR people that can open up some doors and get the right type of story with the right type of editor.
Have you experimented with like LinkedIn?
One of the operations person at the office has been doing that a lot. I haven't been, I haven't been, but they have.
Okay. Have you, maybe this is a question for the operations person, but like, has that like yielded much business or it's kind of,
It hasn't yielded a lot of business. It's yielded a lot of curiosity to who we are.
hmm,
And then the
awareness?
nice thing about that is, when people do find us, when you look at our work or you see our site, people are always like, well, where have you been? This stuff is great. Where have you been?
Well, I mean, like I talk with a lot of agencies and like you have had like large clients and you have this really cool aesthetic. You have Liev. I know that's a double-edged sword, but you're in New York City. And what I'm trying to say is like you do have a strong presence in my eyes just from viewing other agencies. So I think that question of like, where have you been is like paralleled to the idea that like, oh yeah, these guys, how have I not heard about these guys because they're so strong?
Yeah. And again, I think that's a PR thing. It's about getting, and you need consistency. It's what we talked about a little while ago. There's so many agencies now, and the big agencies are making so much noise with all their acquisitions. And there's another new agency that opens up every week, an ad week. The question is, do you have the body of work to be consistent to stay on top of the news cycle?
Tell me more about that. Do you have the body of work to stay on top of the news cycle in terms of like, do you have
New
the
work.
body of work to prove yourself to get new work,
Yeah.
but that new work has to be recent to acquire like the big fish? It's got to
Yeah.
be recent.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, a good example, I think, is Preacher. The guys at Preacher, I worked with all those guys at Mother. They're phenomenal. They're like the best people in the world. They have
Wow.
had such a great run over the last couple of years, but they're constantly getting new clients and they're constantly doing good work and they're constantly being able to be in the news cycle fresh as they go. And it's momentum. It's the same in sports, right? Like they have great momentum going for them right now at work. They're really good people, which is all the difference in the world. But they've been able to manage their voice and who they are very, very well. And in the process of that, with the momentum, they're getting more and more and more clients, which every time there's a new client, there's new work for those clients, it's another PR cycle for them. And for us, we'll probably have 4 new clients this year. When they come in, they're going to be sporadic. So I can, this October we'll do a bunch of PR based off of the work we're going to do for the oncology group. And then there's another set of films coming up, I think, in November. After that, I don't really have an idea of, well, what are we going to have that's new at this point? Summer is always slow for everybody. August is always the deadest month because all the decision makers are away on vacation. But fall should pick back up again with some new stuff. But it's really important to get new work out there for people to see and to see how you do it.
Yeah. And I'm kind of exploring this because I'm learning about this dynamic. When you do a PR circuit, like let's say we just did a big campaign with Chevy and we want to show that to new prospective clients, how do we do that?
That's that's the $1,000,000 question.
Well, I mean to phrase that, how do you do that? How would you take a stab at it?
Yeah, I think it's a question of what is the work? Who do you want to go after next? And how do you want to frame the PR story so that you're attracting the right clientele? Like, I love packaged goods. I mean, I've done
Me
it
too.
my entire career. I absolutely love packaged goods.
Have you
We
been to
have,
Expo West?
what's that?
Have you been to Expo West?
No, I haven't.
It's awesome.
No, but it's like as much as I love that, we have a really hard time getting meetings with packaged good companies. And I've got a long career working for Nestle and other brands, and I still can't crack that code, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's if we're too small. If somebody just looks at us and says, "Well, you're too small to run a big packaged good brand like Ritz crackers." I would love to do Ritz crackers. So it's just, I guess going back to the PR question, if we did something and I wanted to go after packaged goods, how would I even spin the Chevy stuff to get to the packaged goods guys? A lot of what we do is storytelling, and I know that's like a dud phrase because everybody does storytelling, but we actually do really good storytelling at the agency. I think if you go to the site and you look at everything, you'll see like this everything that most of everything we do has a nice emotional tie-in story involved to it. Even the big brand stuff, we've been able to, eke out, some good emotional storytelling. But again, like how do I attract the bigger fish in the pond? How do we get some of the CPGs and some of the other people to pay attention to us as an agency? And my guess is it's mainly our size.
Well, talking about like kind of future goals and like vision, what do you want to change? What do you want to see Vans do in the next 6 to 12 months? What's on your radar?
I think we'd like to bring in another client. Right now we've got 5 clients and we're working around the clock and they're all a little bit different.
In what space do you want this client to be?
I would love a packaged good client. I would love a packaged good client or another, we've done a lot of alcohol in our career. I would love another, booze brand to play with. I used to be the creative director on Absolute, which takes, it goes all the
What
way
year?
back. Oh my God. Long time ago, the bottle campaign.
Are you telling me you're responsible for that campaign in the magazine ads with the bottle?
I am. I'm not the person who created that campaign. That
Yeah.
was Jeff who created the original one with the halo. But for 3 years, I was the creative director that did all of the bottle ads that came out of Absolute, and then everything else Seagram's had. I mean, we launched Patron, but I love working on the booze brands because there's a lot of range you can do with that, and it's really brand advertising. I mean, it's like it's a badge.
Yeah,
How do you create a badge out of a brand?
what do you mean like a badge?
Well, a lot of the times, especially with booze, it's about what you're ordering. You don't just you want to call out your vodka because you don't want the well vodka. You want people to think that like it's like a badge of honor kind of thing. It's like I want
It's
to
a
put this
status
on my
symbol.
bar. I want people to see my Patron bottle on the bar instead of
Certainly.
my Casamigos.
I'm a McAllen man.
Yes.
I'm this, I'm not that. Us versus them.
Yeah.
Uh, and then second to last question. If you could kind of solve one, and you've like spoke on it. If you could solve like one adversity or issue that's facing vans right now, like what would it be?
I think it goes back to the PR story and making sure that we are creating work that's exciting for people to see, not just exciting for us to do. And I think we're back in the swing of things where the work is, we're getting more work. So just in the nature of that, we're starting to get the good stuff back up and running. There was definitely a time where we were doing a lot of things that were just website development, site maintenance, social media maintenance, that it's not really things that we wanted to, necessarily. We're happy with all the work. We're happy with everything we've done, but is it an exciting thing to put out there?
Mm,
Is that work as much fun as we had for it and it was right for the clients? Is that something that's going to attract somebody at Nabisco? Is that something that's going to attract somebody, back at Nestle? Is that something that's going to attract somebody at Diageo? It's not. It's going to keep the lights on, and it's going to, we're going to be able to, maintain our clients at the level that we, want to make sure that we stay at. But for us right now, it's about making sure that we're getting some projects done that are exciting to share with the rest of the world.
We kind of end on a fun note, talking about campaigns that matter to people. Do you think that the campaign behind the American Eagle Sydney Sweeney campaign knew what they were doing? Do you think like they kind of were expecting this?
No,
No.
no, I don't.
Do you think these things can be expected? Like it's such a
it's so hard now to see. I mean, I have a teenage kid, so I hear everything that like transpires in the world of like what's okay and what's not okay and how people read into things. We did a campaign a bazillion years ago for British Knight sneakers. I don't even know if British Knight still exists, but it was a jeans campaign, and it was like it was sperm swimming, and it said you inherited your parents' jeans, but their shoes. Like, I don't know, because you use a popular actress and you use the word jeans. Like, you could look into that 1,000 different ways. I mean, you can find it if you want to go look for it.
it was kind of like a hit. It was a hit to her brand,
Yeah.
and then the jeans brand just kind of was there for the tag along.
Yeah.
Um, it, it's so interesting. I'm really into like psychology and philosophy, and not really getting not really getting entranced by celebrities, but just like watching it as a phenomenon.
Yeah.
And with that comes the media's cycle of calling out conflict. And we saw a lot of conflict with that campaign where, oh, it's racist, it's this and that. And then that seemed to like teeter off. And now I'm reading that American Eagles stock, and I just like do you think that a brand, when they create like like there's the age old PR saying of like any attention, what is it? Any attention is good attention or something?
Yeah. Any PR is good PR.
Have you done any campaigns that are kind of like edgy and they turn into like dollars?
No, we've been lucky enough to stay off the conflict radar. We haven't done anything. I mean, the closest thing um, that ever happened was an IKEA ad where one of the kids had his name written on his shirt, and we got in a lot of trouble from some certain group who said we were promoting child kidnapping because the kid's name was on his shirt, and any person could walk up and call him by his name. Yeah. I
That's
mean, it's like I said, if you want to find it, you can find it.
that's
And
so neat. That's so specific.
it's so specific, and it was a big group. It was a big organization calling in saying we were promoting child kidnapping because the kid's Johnny was written on his shirt or something. And it was just like, okay.
What's I think the madman guy, he's like, you can only please some of the people some of the time.
Yeah.
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 Well, thanks so much, Scott. I really
Yeah. Thank you.
appreciate you coming on the pod and discussing what it's like to run your agency. And, I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.